Well, I'm grateful to have another amazing guest today with our topic of how to increase capacity in your people and organization. So, our guest is David Robertson, who's a business strategist, investor, and consultant with ISI, which is North America's largest consulting firm. And he's dedicated to helping entrepreneurs build companies worth owning and leaders worth following. Inspired by his father's struggles as a business owner, David has spent his career uncovering why some organizations thrive while others stall. From humble beginnings in the furnace shop to becoming one of North America's leading business consultants, he has started, scaled, and sold businesses while helping numerous companies achieve significant growth, including several recognized on the Inc. 5000 list. Today, David works with business owners, investors, and consultants to transform businesses into scalable, sustainable organizations that create both financial and human impact. Through his practical frameworks and leadership insights, he helps leaders increase organizational capacity, build stronger cultures, and create companies that provide more life than they take. So, David, welcome. And that last sentence right there is kind of a big one, providing more life than they take.
Yes, that's if uh I finally realized why a lot of business owners don't have family to leave their business to because the family has seen how much it costs to own the
Mhm.
business, and very few want to actually take up that sacrifice. And so my goal is to at for every client that I work with to help them get the business that gives more than it takes.
Awesome. So before we dive into our specific topic today, I think it'd be great for you to show or to share rather, what led you to begin this journey into consulting leaders as you do right now.
Oh, let's see. I was born in no.
You did
Uh,
mention your dad's business experience. I mean, and
yes, but realistically, I do have a picture on my computer of myself at I think I was 3 years old, sitting at my dad's desk with a pen, and I think at that time I was pretending I was doing work that he did, and that was spy work. I'm pretty sure that that's what it was. But it was inside an insurance office, and so I said it jokingly, but literally, I was born into business or grew up in business.
Mhm.
I grew up with one foot in business and one foot in ministry. He was also a pastor. And
Okay.
I remember when he made that transition from pastor to going to start his company, and that was exciting to me. And it was one of those things that I think whether he intended to do it or not, he made it exciting for me. And I kind of got this uh, rose rose colored glasses and fell in love with business at a young age. And I was that kid that started a paper out at how old was I? 11, 12, and got quickly realized I didn't like delivering papers. So I got all my brother's friends to deliver papers for me. And I went around the paper route once a month and collected the money and uh, just gave them half to split between them. But then I realized I didn't like paying them the money. So since I was older, I went across the street, bought candy, and sold it back to them to get my money back.
I forgot about that. I remember this story now.
So I say that because it's the typical entrepreneur story. While kids played sports, I played business, and
Wow.
it's um, the way I think about every. It's the lens I see life through. In fact, when I went to Bible college and kept trying to bring business ideas to Bible college, and that didn't go well together back in 2003. It would have been great today, but
Yeah.
but um, it just wasn't met with real. It was just whenever I got in to the presence of God or in worship, I business ideas would flood my mind, and I used to think it was distractions, and it was like pulling me away from God. And finally, I got to the point where I learned, hey, I can embrace it and I can be myself with God. I don't have to fight
Mm.
that. And About that time, I decided to jump into business. I failed miserably and um, closed the business down, started again, and failed miserably again. And so the way I got to doing what I'm doing is I kept failing until I stopped. That's the short end of it, but
Yeah.
eventually got to the point where um, while I was working in doing some um, marketing because I had left the the furnace company, and someone I'd known in insurance started asking and said, "Hey, what do you can you help me do what you did with your company?" Um, and I said, "Well, I'm not going to do it for you, but I'll sit down at Panera Bread once a week and have coffee with you and talk about it." And I didn't because I never went to Bible college or business college. I was literally a furnace guy and I played guitar and loved God. And I didn't know there was this thing called consulting or coaching or anything like that. But at one point, I read something about coaching and I realized, hey, I'm doing that. People pay for that. And that started the 10-year journey of learning how to figure out the way I thought about business and how to transplant or train people up to think that way in their company. And um, it was has been a let's see, it's been 15 years now that since I sat down in Panera Bread and started working with mentoring my uh, first friend in business, and then it has grown since then. Had the pleasure to work with some amazing people and um, uh, get to see a lot of great businesses take off. So
Well, and even for some context, you were saying before we even recorded, you're traveling how many weeks a year to work with clients, and how long are these engagements typically? Share that, because I think that gives context to when we talk about the topics that you're going to share with us today about what you're seeing a lot of
yeah,
leaders.
yeah, yeah. No, it's I was doing coaching for what for uh let's see, 12 years of the 15. And eventually got to the point where I kept saying, man, if I could get on site and just force correct everything on the company, I feel like I could just get them in the right lane, headed the right direction. Um, and there's a long story about the transition going from coaching to where I am now, but um, it now I do travel. I God put an opportunity in my lap that I wasn't looking for. I was working from home. I had a 4-year-old and eight-year-old, and loved the commute from the kitchen to the office and
Mhm.
watching my kids in the background while I'm on a coaching call dance. And one time they actually mooned me while I was on a coaching call. So that was the funnest experience ever is working from home like that. And um, this opportunity came up, and I found myself being recruited to a consulting company, and it was to do consulting on site for they said 6 to 8 weeks at a time, and it was 100% travel. So you leave on Sunday night and come back Friday night, Friday afternoon, and I've been doing that now for over 3.5 years now.
Wow.
And so yeah, I do travel 48 weeks a year and for business. And then the other 4 weeks, my family wants to travel, so I follow them around. Uh, but but no, but I'm on site um, 6 a.m. to 5 p.m., 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. With owners in the trenches, helping them figure out how to remove the bottleneck and figure out and diagnose and build a system that runs without them that, as we said earlier, that gives more than it takes.
Hmm. So one of the things you and I have talked about offline, and the reason that I really wanted to have you on and talk through this as we record this is, many organizations hit a ceiling where growth slows, momentum stalls, and similar or the same problems keep resurfacing. So, how can leaders determine whether they've reached an organizational limit or a leadership limit?
I don't know that there's a difference. And I really took some time to think about that question because that yeah, I think one the leadership limit creates the organizational limit.
Hmm.
I'll say that.
Yeah.
I've never gone into a company where the client was not the problem, the
Okay.
main problem. Well, I'll have a list of deliverables and um, typical typical engagement for me is 10 weeks. In fact, I tell my client minimum 10 weeks because I know it takes a certain amount of time to build habits and make change that lasts. And that's a whether they know it or not, they're paying 200 grand, 250 grand over 10 weeks to fix themselves. And even though there's the deliverables and everything, it's kind of like sell them the deliverables, but give them what they want, what they really need, and that's the coaching and the coaching and the accountability. Um,
Hmm.
but it's but no, it is very much the client.
So,
Um,
really, what I'm hearing you say, like every organization in and of itself doesn't have a limit. It just depends on the leader that's at the helm at any given moment can
mhm.
take that to whatever level, right?
Yeah, it's and I want to be careful because I have changed the way I've thought from when I was coaching and just doing 90-minute conversations and still getting business results. But if I stopped coaching, those results would stop.
Hmm.
And now I'm looking at results that keep on going after I'm done, which is more fulfilling for me.
Hmm.
Uh, but but it's so I have to. I say that because I've changed the way I look at business now because I've seen when you're in a company, a new company every 2 to 3 months, you get to see the same personalities, the same problems, the same employees, the same bookkeepers, the same accounting books. It's all blends in to be about the same. Um,
Hmm.
but you get to notice the patterns that come up over and over again. So, but it is um, I still will agree with the fact that it you can't let your business outgrow you.
Hmm.
Um, Business ultimately, going back to the framework that I use, the business is actually quite simple. There's only five things that you have to get right to create growth in your business. You have to attract attention. You have to convert that attention into a sale of some kind. Then you have to deliver the result, solve a problem that you promised to solve, and steward resources that come from that sale, and then build a team so that you can attract more attention. And it's kind of a flywheel effect that
Hmm.
every business has those five things that it has to do. The only difference between Chuck in a truck or a man in a van and the global organization is how sophisticated those five things get. You
Hmm.
look at something like a Ford or a GM, they have gotten so large and so sophisticated that they've taken one of those things, which is attract attention and convert it, and created individual entities like dealerships that solely focus on one aspect of that business.
Hmm.
But they all have to do those five things.
Hmm.
So the to go back and where is it an organizational problem or where is it a leadership problem? It's whether the leader who is accountable to the results, I guess whether they're accountable to results is the first question. Then the second question is um, how much can they create? Are they micromanaging, creating followers, or are they leading and creating leaders?
Hmm.
Because you get after five, you can make it at five, it becomes stressful. At 10, it becomes nearly impossible. At 11 or 12 employees, the wheels start falling off the bus.
Mm,
And that's typically where you'll see the numbers. You'll see it in the P&L. Their sales will go hit this amount and then they'll fall back down. And hit this amount, fall back down. And that's the leadership capacity. The business grows and it will grow past their capacity and then it'll fall back down to normal. And if they don't push for growth, it will it will flatline or it will start to lose momentum and
mm,
go the opposite direction and start losing growth. So,
mm,
but it's that's that you can. I've never been, and this is probably where you and I were talking last time. I've never recognized before I've been on site looking at the P&Ls and see the correlation between the number and the person sitting right in front of me that um, that the numbers are telling the John Maxwell's law of the lid,
mm,
and it's you can actually see it on the balance sheet or you can see it on the P&L.
mm,
You can see it in cash flow, and it's you can tell a lot just by looking at those numbers.
mm. So, what are some specific or common ways you see leaders unknowingly becoming that bottleneck to growth? I mean, you're saying that you're seeing it, but are there behaviors or characteristics that are common that cause it, or is it kind of across the board or like a mix?
Um, it takes a certain personality to look at what your employer does and say, "Yeah, I could do better," and then risk everything and jump into business to do better. Um,
Hmm.
it takes a certain amount of swag or a certain amount of confidence or a certain amount of thrill seeking. I can also say that most of my clients should be on ADD medicine. But it takes a certain personality and to get a company going, that person has to give everything into that company. That person has to they have to go get the attention, they have to convert it, they have to deliver, collect the check,
They're wearing
and
all five hats, right?
yep, they're doing everything all at once. And even when they're by themselves, they um, self leadership precedes team leadership. Um, the there's a certain amount of significance. I go back to Tony Robbins has the six human needs. Have you ever
Hmm.
heard of those?
Yeah, I've heard,
Um,
yeah, roughly,
so they have the need for connection, the need for significance. Those you have both of those needs, but they're on the opposite. They're the opposite ends of the coin, or the ends of the spectrum. And then you have the need for security and the need for adventure or variety. And then the two mature needs are growth and contribution. So the typically people will I've found most business owners have a deep desire for significance and a deep desire for adventure. Like if they get stuck doing something too long, they'll burn the boats and
uh-huh.
they'll create problems just to have an adventure, just to have fun. Uh, and it creates significance. So that when what I'm seeing on site is that it's um, there's a tremendous amount of significance and a tremendous amount of value that they get by having the answer. I can outwork you, I can outsell you. If you don't know how to fix it, I do. If you don't know where it is, I do. If you ask me a customer's middle name or cell phone number, I know it better than I can give it to you faster than you can look it up on QuickBooks.
Hmm.
So they become the center of the wagon wheel, so to speak.
Hmm.
They become Google. It's hey, hey Dave, what do I do here? What do I do there? And
Too
they,
much dependency on them, though.
yeah, but they don't um they don't necessarily know that they're doing it, I don't think,
Yeah.
but it is a um it's a self-rewarding system of significance. So
Hmm.
and as do you have 10 people that all depend on you, you're carrying the load, You'll go without a paycheck so they can go. You'll stay up all night. I had one client that was sleeping on a job site, just to make deadlines, and he was going without a paycheck, but his team was at home. His team was at home, doing everything, and they'll go to the ends of the earth because they care about their team so much. They care about what they built so much, but they're also getting a level of significance from that behavior. And I say
Mhm.
use that word very intentionally. It's a behavior that gets a significance. And if the other thing about Tony Robbins' human needs is if one activity meets uh, more than two or three of those human needs, it has a realistic uh, uh, chance of becoming an addiction.
Oh, wow.
So if you have a business where you have connection, everybody tells you you're great because you signed their paycheck.
Yeah.
Uh, is significance because you have the answers and you're in charge. You sign their paycheck, and you have control, an illusion of control over your income, an illusion of control over your time because you could take the day off if you really wanted to. I could stop anytime I wanted to, but and you get the variety because you're constantly in a game of what I call cash flow chicken, where
Mhm.
it's I got to make payroll, I got to make a sale, and then so it's an extremely addictive environment. Business is an addictive environment if you put the business first, and if
Mhm.
you don't, after you get to that 10 or 11 employees, the rules of the game change, and no longer does it reward that go get 'em attitude. It starts rewarding other behaviors, and if you don't recognize that change, you're going to stay stuck in that $1 to $2 million range, and that maybe with inflation, it's now one to 3 million, but
Wow. Well, that's impactful because when you look at, I don't know the exact statistics, you probably know better, but the percentage of businesses in America that are actually small businesses,
yeah.
that's a lot of leaders out there that you're describing probably.
Yeah, 90, I think it's 96% of businesses, 96% of companies in the United States never make it to $1 million. Um,
Wow.
it's only 2% will make it to 3 million. And these are probably old numbers. I'm seeing more and more $1 to $2 million companies out there. That's the other thing. I work with small businesses intentionally. It's not the $50 million companies. I work with $5 million, $3 million
Hmm.
mom and pop shops. Um, that's and but it's uh, for sure less than 90, less than 1% of the companies ever make it to 5 million. Um,
Wow.
what the I forget what the exact number is, but it's
But that's not what we feel like
almost
is
none.
reality, right? Like
No.
that we think that that number is like flipped almost based on what the media says or
Oh yeah.
whatever's going on, right? That it's and so I think what we're talking about is so significant because really you're talking about almost everybody, right? I mean,
Y- y- Yeah,
and
virtually
even
everybody.
you may not be the owner, but you're probably being impacted by the owner because
Mhm.
of what we've been talking about, and that impacts everybody, right? I mean, in a lot of these small
Absolutely.
businesses, it's such a close-knit community of people because they are the smaller operations that you
Hmm.
can't help but get to know each other well, and so the relationships, it's funny. I was just doing a conversation, leadership conversation with a group of leaders last week about is should you view your business as a family? And we had this debate kind of conversation about family versus team versus whatever other label. And but the reality is when you're with people 40 plus hours a week, it does become at least some family dynamics, and a lot of families obviously are dysfunctional.
A lot of people are dysfunctional. I'm
Yeah,
dysfunctional.
right. So we bring all that dysfunction to the workplace, right? And wow, that's really interesting. So let's move on here because I think so most leaders know change is necessary, but knowing and doing are two different things. And I
Yeah.
love what you said that you're telling your clients, look, it's going to take it 10 weeks at least because it's got to get ingrained and instilled these new behaviors and new mindset, all the tactics and everything together, I'm sure. But, what have you found is the most effective way to motivate positive change in an organization without creating resistance? Because, I mean, like you said, there comes a point where you leave. So,
Yeah.
what does it take to motivate that change so that when you do leave, they're in a good place and can continue on what you've been working so hard to help them with?
Yeah, it's um what when I go on site, the first thing I do is I tell my clients quite literally is that what you're doing is you're hiring me as CEO of your company, and my job is to train you as my replacement. And I can't leave until I can trust that you can replace me. And so it's very much um, a, a high intense 10 weeks. It's not a
How is that received, by the way?
uh it takes some guts to say that to an owner. Most of the time, by the time they get to me, we have our the firm that I work with has a an amazing sales process. Most of our clients go from never hearing about us to a $200,000 engagement in less than 7 days. Um,
That's
it's
impressive right there.
yeah, it's
Forget long
the
sales
sales
cycles.
system the sales system has been written about in books. So
Wow.
it is a very impressive sales
Hmm.
force and a sales process. But most of the time, by the time I show up, they've been prepped. They've been, they've seen the reality, and I'm there to stop the bleeding. I'm there to stop the pain. And by the time I get there, they understand that they're the issue and they need help.
Hmm.
Um, but
So the groundwork has been laid for you to be able to step in and say that,
yes.
even though it still takes courage to really
Oh,
have that conversation.
it's not easy. It'd be like someone coming into your family and saying, you know what, Chris, um, I'm going to step in as leader of the house, and because you're dropping the ball, and I've,
And I'm not leaving until you're ready to take over.
yeah, exactly. It's very much a personal,
Yeah.
it's a deeply personal thing. So it does take courage. It also takes um, a level of um, uh, I have to I have to be careful because they do put a lot of trust in what I do, and
Hmm.
I have to I I feel a conviction every time I'm at their office of what I have to do because it's not I'm not cheap when I show up, and
Yeah.
it is something that I have to deliver results. And so, but the starting at that point, I'll then bring everybody in the company into an all hands meeting and say, have the client introduce what I'm doing, and then say that the goal is to create more opportunity for everybody. I'm not one of there's plenty of movies where you lay off. Um,
Right. You're the lynch
yeah,
mob, right? Like,
yeah, yeah. I'm here I've heard everything from him. I'm here to buy the company. I'm here to fire everybody. I'm here to arrest the owner because I'm part of the IRS. I've heard everything. I showed up to one job and it was a construction company and the entire construction crew left. Like they just adios, adios amigos. Show up in suit and a tie and they think I'm
wow.
ICE or something, I guess. I don't know. But
Hmm.
but um but no, it's so I get everybody together on day one and say, here's what we're doing, here's how long we'll be doing it together, and here's why we're doing it. And um, it's it's always to increase the profitability of the company and increase the opportunity for everybody, and then also be able to generate enough profitability so that the owner can share it with the employees. I've
Hmm.
never gone into a company where the owner didn't care about sharing the profitability with their employees, and it's something that that's always there. Um, but if we
How
can
long
get
how long does it take for them to actually believe? that once you've said that in that first meeting?
Probably about 5 weeks. Like that'll buy me enough time that they're not filling out uh, applications somewhere else. Yeah,
Really?
but it's um, yeah, probably about 4 or 5 weeks before I get everybody's trust. And even then, there are some people that are always suspicious. But
Hmm.
from there where I sit down with the owner and we start looking at, all right, what are those 5 areas that we need to handle? And most people don't have any way that they're attracting attention. So they don't really have any good marketing system in place. They may have an SEO company or some Google ads or something like that. Um, the owner's doing sales, the owner's in operations, and the owner's in finance. And um, the team is there. They don't really have any leadership practices or management structure in place. So we sit down with the owner and then we break it up and say, at minimum, you have to have sales, ops, and finance, and you have to gather with your team to to create um, to create somewhat of a management or leadership structure. Part of that, and this is where the you have to create leaders. So it's a leadership bottleneck or a leadership issue. But the reason you have to create leaders is because it is an organizational limit as well. So it's a
Hmm.
personal development limit and um, organizational limit because the um, in the sales, operations, and finance, typically the owner is bouncing between all three. So
Hmm.
they go out and generate sales, and then they get really busy, and then they have to go correct things out in the field, or they have to go fix out to the garage and make sure everything's running out in the shop or
Hmm.
out in the garage or wherever they're doing it, they're delivering their work. And then things start slowing down and then they realize, oh, we gotta we things get tight and they say, shoot, I need to go collect my money. It's amazing how many people will do all the work, bill, and never call the person to get paid. So they have to go collect the money and then they start running out of those and they start getting slow in operations, so they run back over to sales. And that's the reason why you don't grow past that 1 to 2 million is because the rules of the game change. You could do as a man in a van, you could go out, attract attention, convert it, deliver, collect, and discipline yourself to go out and do it again all in one day, multiple times a day. But as you get bigger, it gets harder to do that. There's more and more pieces that it's not just one person. And if you keep that one person, sales, operations, finance, they all work in tension with each other. And it is impossible for an owner or a single individual to be in tension with themselves over a long period of time. So that's where they get burnout. That's
Hmm.
where they grow and then they fall back down. And um, that's one of the reasons I got started is because I watched my dad just burn out and
Hmm.
walk away from his company. And I was left right at the time where I was looking to get into the company as a family business. And I was left saying, well, now what?
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
because I loved business and it meant more to me than just my dad changing a career. It was a dream and an identity that I had taken on. But but when you're handling all three yourself, you're in tension because what the very first thing that I'm doing is number one, over communicating, getting everybody at least aware of the direction that we're headed.
Hmm.
Then gathering a closer group of people, often three or four, and saying we've got to share responsibility here because if if a company is run healthy after $3 million, what they're doing is sales. You have someone driving sales and they're going to drive sales and eventually it's going to get to the point where sales and their backlog is filling up, and then their operations person who's handling the field operations or warehouse or whatever, they're going to say, hey, you need to slow down, we can't keep up.
Hmm.
And that's where the tension becomes.
Hmm.
And that's where no, as what I'm training the client to do, what I'm training the owner to do is recognize the difference between problems that need to be solved and tensions that need to be managed. Because if you try to manage problems, it doesn't go well. And if you try to solve tension, it doesn't go well.
Hmm.
Um, I've found that even with my wife. If I try to manage a problem that I have that my wife has, that doesn't go well. And if I try
Yeah.
to solve a tension that she has with me or something I'm doing, that doesn't go well either. It's got to be managed. So, but the tension between sales and ops is that is the tension that needs to be managed, not solved. The problem that needs to be solved is the operations guy, not the sales guy.
Hmm.
Never tell sales to slow down, never tell them to stop. They drive everything forward, and it takes the longest to pick back up if you lose the momentum. So the problem and what the CEO does in an organization is create tension and manage that tension in the management meeting, in the leadership meeting, where they're saying, Scott, you keep doing what you're doing. That's exactly what we're paying you to do. So don't stop.
Right.
Brad, you've got an issue that you can't keep up. So what do we need to do as a team? What do we need to do to solve that issue?
Hmm.
And so we're gonna solve the problem that's actually the problem instead of cutting the tension, we're gonna dive into the problem.
Hmm.
And eventually what Brad will say is, I need to hire more people, and if we hire more people, I need a truck, and we don't you're always talking about we don't have cash. And the finance person's going to say, no, you're just going to deal with what you do. But that's the tension thing again. The problem is the finance person and the owner need to figure out how to fund the growth for the operations. And so they figure out the way they're doing it, and they're just going to say, if we're going to buy this van, or if we're going to buy this warehouse, or if we're going to buy this piece of equipment, then sales needs to make sure that they can keep delivering and
Hmm.
pass the tension back to sales. It's doing the same thing that the owner has been doing themselves, wearing themselves out. But now, if I've removed the owner from the center of the wagon wheel, now we're equipping and giving other people responsibility and authority to do that.
Yeah.
And then they don't have to live in tension with themselves. They can just go sell because they love to sell. This
Yeah.
person can go do high quality work because they love to do it right and they love to do it efficiently. And this person can go um, make sure to manage cash and collect cash because they like to make sure everything adds up and everything tracks. Um,
Wow.
but so it's being able to there's several dynamics that need to happen there for that to
Hmm.
succeed, but it has to start with the owner saying, I can't do it anymore.
Hmm.
It's outgrown me, and I need help, and I need to allow someone else to be better than me, which is
Well, yeah,
which is
then there's ego involved, right? And pride that
yes.
you gotta be working around. One thing, David, as you're talking about this, that I'm just really intrigued by listening to all this because you meant so what I got to thinking of is you once you get the owner to that space where they know they need to divide and conquer with team members, now the next question for me is, are those team members ready to lead themselves?
Hmm. Yeah.
And so
A lot of times I'm taking a machinist on a shop floor and saying, the owner wants you to be operations manager now. And
mhm.
and we're gonna hold you accountable by the P&L. And they're like, a P and what? And or a profit and loss statement or a balance sheet, or we're gonna have metrics and there's numbers. And that's where the second phase comes in, is that they have what I do this intentionally. Most owners do not know their numbers very well, and they're scared of accounting, and they don't trust profit because profit is the number that their tax person tells them. You're profitable, you better go spend your money so you don't get taxed.
Mhm.
Uh, I won't go down that
That's
route.
another episode.
That's another episode, and CPAs don't like me when I talk about that episode. So, um, but 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 they, but if I'm educating their team, I'm not pointing at the fact that the emperor has no clothes on. He's learning alongside them, but I'm educating them as a whole group. So together they're learning a set of values, a set of principles, a set of um, rules to the game
Hmm.
that as a team they're really forming even deeper relationships than what we've already talked about because you're already spending time together. But now you're gonna have aha moments together. You're gonna see suddenly you're gonna realize, oh, that's why you changed the commission structure because it's if I make a sale and collect commission now and then you have to pay materials to install the work and then the customer doesn't pay for 30 days if they pay on time, 60 days if they're slow payers, and it's it could be 90 days before you get paid. So that's why I'm paid on cash collect instead of it's suddenly that like, oh, that makes sense now. Now it's not the owner being a a greedy person. It's
Yeah.
the fact that, oh, it's this is the numbers. This
Yeah,
the
the money's got to be there, right?
Yes, exactly. So walking through and explaining how money flows through the business, and suddenly that's the scariest part for the owner, but it's one of the biggest impact things that I've ever seen in a company is when a team understands how to make a profit and understands how money is made, then they're able to make decisions. So the other key thing that the owner has to do if we're focusing on the leader, they have to they have to trust their team enough that they actually want the business to succeed. They want things to work out. They want the owner to be profitable. They want the owner to be successful. Most of them would would work more hours so the owner could take a vacation because they know he hasn't taken a vacation.
Hmm.
Um, they actually believe in him more than he believes in himself. But the I don't know why I care a lot about my work, but the the insecurity of not knowing is what keeps the owner the center of that wagon wheel because they're like,
Hmm.
I don't I don't get it myself.
Yeah.
How are they going to get it? So it's
Well,
a mixture of commitment, a mixture of shared values, shared experiences, and a mixture of um, being able to trust and be vulnerable and create space to for accountability. And
mhm,
that's most of what I'm doing in that weekly meeting and the meetings following up to it and the meetings after it is I'm creating opportunity for accountability. And there has to
mhm,
be trust that's at the foundation. There has to be um, a shared language. There has to be the rules to the game. There has to be rewards for the game. Everybody has to know their place and their role. It's very much the difference between playing um, three Y soccer and at YMCA where everybody's chasing their own ball and doing
mhm.
everything versus a pro team where they know this is my role, this is where I stand on the field. I don't go run and score a goal if I'm a defender, and unless it's specifically designed to do that. And
Yeah.
um, so that's
Wow. No, it's very interesting because, David, one of the things so for me, right, I was a pastor for 20 years going into business,
mhm.
and I always thought business people just had it all together.
Uh,
And
I mean, this is
I've
small business is the backbone of America's economy, right?
exactly right. And I've met so many amazing business people in my coaching and training side, now, working at the Chamber of Commerce as well, work with our small businesses in the area. And what I've realized is, and even for myself, it was more, I think I discovered it for myself first, and then I started to see it everywhere was, so many people are good at the thing they do, their craft, right?
Hmm.
But building and managing a business holistically is a completely different skill set. And
Yeah.
so somebody might be really good at HVAC work or plumbing or designing and manufacturing, whatever it is, or food if they're in a restaurant business or whatever it is, they could be really good at that thing. But then, like you said, you've got sales, marketing, finance, all these things along the side of that. And I think that's where a lot of entrepreneurs, from my perspective, get trapped is they think, why? I can do this better than my boss or whatever, right? So I'm going to go
Yeah,
start my own business. But then they forget about you don't get to go just do the one job you were doing at your last company. You now have to be in charge of everything. And
yeah,
so, to me, I feel like that's just one of those things that unfortunately we probably just had to learn the hard way on one level. But everything you're saying, it just makes so much sense because it just shows why so many businesses and leaders can get stuck. And our topic today, right, is just simply how to increase capacity. And you're talking about that is you have to let go of control. You have to be willing to empower, give people that
yeah.
responsibility with authority. You have to educate yourself and your team. I mean, there's so many great nuggets here, and I really appreciate all you shared because I think there's probably a lot of people that could listen to this and feel like maybe they're on an island, that they're alone and feeling the way they feel, but I think what you're highlighting is it's actually pretty normal to feel this way and to be in this situation.
Mhm.
But there's also hope and there's a way out to a
Yeah.
better reality. So, thanks for jumping on and having this conversation with me. I really do appreciate it. And David, if people want to connect with you and just follow your work, where's the best way to do that?
I'm gonna if I'm just gonna give my cell phone number because
Okay.
I'm busy enough that I have a hard time checking my email, and I have not yet programmed AI to be a good executive assistant yet.
There you go.
Although it's getting there. It is
It is.
very close. Um, which is a completely different
That's
uh,
another topic we can cover.
yes, it is. But
You should just be a regular on the show every so often.
if you're listening, you want to if you want to chat or if you want to talk, just reach out, shoot me a text and say, "Hey, I heard you on Chris's podcast." My cell phone number is 937-269-5090. I've had that number since I was 18 years old, so uh, as much as spam calls as I get from it, I still can't let the number
Can't
go.
shake it, right?
No, but that's probably the best way. If you want to read and follow material, like I'll share this podcast on my social media channels and on my blog,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. You can go to thedavidrobertson.com. Um, if you want to take an assessment of your company, if you're an owner, you can go to exitreadyowner.com. And there's an assessment on there that will do a pretty decent job and better than any other calculator I've seen at uh, giving a an uncertified valuation without a bunch of information. But it'll give a good idea of where you are operationally and where you are financially, what the bottleneck is in your organization, and then lay out a path to fix that bottleneck. I know most people listening, they either won't or don't have 200 grand to invest in 10 weeks of consulting. In fact, I don't know that any of my clients do. I have to generate a lot of my own results. I have to generate that fee in results, um, but that assessment does a really good job at laying out a path, at least showing you what needs to be handled and what the next step is,
Nice.
where the bottleneck or where the constraint is in your company. So those are
Yeah,
a
yeah, no,
few
absolutely.
options.
And as a teaser, there might be a book someday about
Yeah.
being the exit ready owner, right?
Yes. Yes. There just might be.
And when that day happens, we're going to have this a different conversation about all this. But
Yes.
no, David, thanks so much for the time. This has been great, and I know that once again, it's to me. I hope that from you folks that are listening, just that you feel like okay, there's hope. There just needs to be some strategic steps I need to take, or our team needs to take in order to go from where we are to where we can go, um, and it's possible. But you had to start operating differently, and
Yeah.
like you said, changing those behaviors and habits.
Can I give three uh, grenades of
Sure.
value? If you're an owner and you're looking at how do I do what David is talking about, you can text me. But the there's three things that need to be in place. They, if you're going to delegate something to someone, you can't give someone the response. You have to give someone responsibility. That's number one. You can't give responsibility unless you give them the authority. And authority is not real authority without authority to fail.
Mm,
And so you have to be able to give responsibility and authority and permission to make a mistake and the grace to make a mistake in order to create um, give them freedom. And in fact, that last piece, permission to make a mistake, is one of the biggest things. I explicitly say it when I'm asking someone to take a step into that, and I say, we want you to make a mistake because the only way you're going to learn is by making a mistake. The only
yeah,
way my son learned to walk is by falling. The
yeah,
only way I learned, that's why I started was saying I failed and failed and failed until I
yeah,
didn't. um, but it's so those three nuggets, those three things, if you create those, give someone those three things, and it's done in a way that's not I voluntold you to do it, but you'll most likely, if you ask, you already know who those people are, and if you ask and you give them those three things, then they will be more than willing to help. And if they're not, then you can reach out and text me, and
yeah,
we'll talk about it.
yeah. Well, that's awesome. So thanks for wrapping it up with that. And folks, we will see you next time. But until then, just go out and do some assessment. Take advantage of David's resource at exitreadyowner.com and do that assessment and really think through this because it's um, a critical discussion of what we've had today about what's holding businesses back all over probably all over the world, not just all over the country, but you're primarily in North America here in the US. So
Yes. Yep.
uh,
Yeah, I would venture to say, if you know a business owner, give them a hug, because the whole world thinks they have a vault underneath their house with money in it, and um, they most likely are less than 30 days away from insolvency if they stop. And so they can't stop, and they're trapped. That's a
mm,
very real thing. So
mm,
it's an epidemic no one talks about, and the media loves to portray them as greedy and all kinds of things, but I it's just not true. I
yeah. And a lot of people think that they have it all that because they are business owner that everything is great and everything's working, right? Like it's easy
Yeah.
to have that facade even if you don't put it up for yourself, people can put it on for you.
Oh, and they love to put it on too. Don't
Sure.
get me wrong, they get
Oh yeah,
significant.
no, I'm not saying that either. And sometimes
Yeah,
that's self-preservation, right? You're trying to talk yourself into it. So,
yeah. If I don't laugh, I'll cry.
yeah. All right, Dave. Well, thanks so much again for this conversation.
No, thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris. Hopefully it was valuable for you and your audience.
Absolutely.
Awesome.